Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I have an amazing chess game that was played between the Todd chess engine and me. This game is from the Blitz Championship, which was held recently. This game is very prophylactic and crucial, where I sacrifice my bishop to open the files. I sacrifice my bishop for one pawn, and this game is very spectacular. So, let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with g3, and after knight f6, we have bishop g2. Noticing that the bishop has an open diagonal like a shark, he can go with c6 and e5. Both moves are very significant. Playing c6 would be a good move because after knight f3 and d5, I will consider c4, sacrificing the pawn, and after I castle, black might be tempted to consider bishop d7. His idea is to play b5 and try to stabilize the structure. That's what he wants, but after knight a3 followed by b5 b3, sacrificing another pawn, I will not recapture the pawn. I will just play knight to e5, sacrificing a third pawn, like a magician who sacrifices himself and everything. At the end of the day, he comes up with a tactful idea. Knight takes b5, and now he is attacking the pawn, and also the diagonal will be harassed. These consequences will lead to a chess gambit that I could initiate in the opening. But in our actual game, Torch didn't play c6 instead, he just played g6. He will focus in the near future on playing c6 and d5, but for now, we have d4 and e4 in the center. d6 comes on the board, and here many inexperienced chess players might try to dominate the chess game by playing c4. I mean, c4 is the most common move according to Lee Chess database in this modern variation, or what you call the pirate defense. Then black can actually strike by playing c5, and most chess players push forward the pawn to d5, thinking that this pawn structure is very advanced. But it also provides an open diagonal for the bishop and the knight outpost on the e5 square. Additionally, black can strike by playing b5, hitting the pawn, because after capture and recapture, bishop a6 thus controls this white square diagonal. The queen can come here, and the game could continue like that. In a Japanese sushi manner, the queen side will be dominated by black. In our actual game, I didn't consider c4, instead, we just have knight to c3, and after c6 occurs on the board, he could advance the pawn and also open up the queen's diagonal. We have a4 followed by castle, and knight to e2 on the board. This knight e2 move is very prophylactic, creating a precarious situation for you by playing f4 and bishop e3. A couple of moves later, when d5 was played by the Torch chess engine, you know what I thought in my previous videos. When you get the chance to hit black, when you get the chance to advance your structure by stabilizing it, and when you get the chance to slap your ex in public, then just do it, don't think too much about it. e5 will come to attack the knight, and f4 will occur. By the way, don't slap or hit your ex, that was my joke. The best revenge you can take on your ex is to ignore them and make them feel that you are very happy after leaving them. As the knight moves back, he is threatening to play f6, that's what he wants, to open up the file, which is why we have bishop e3 and f6 on the board to attack the center, and we are just following natural looking moves, in this position. Capturing the pawn on e5 might look good for many chess players, but f takes e5 is not viable due to the rook opening on the f file. That's why white has to consider d takes e5, and after that, you can see that my bishop is playing a very crucial and significant role along this diagonal. The knight is creating an attack, and all of my pieces are overloading and overpressuring the d4 square. Even I can play knight d4 to control the e6 square. That's what I want, and your king side will be very fragile. That's the reason why a few moves ago, he didn't capture the pawn. Instead, he just played knight c7 to overprotect the e6 square, like your parents overcarrying you whenever you go somewhere or do something risky. That's parental love. After queen d2, threatening to castle, we have b5, after a couple of moves, when we have h4. That means I want to maneuver my knight and also play h5 to open up the file. That's what I want in my position, and after a couple of moves, that got accomplished. But Torch actually played f5 to commit the pawn structure to be locked. You can see that all of the committed pawns are located on white squares, which is why my light square bishop becomes a VIP piece to attack these pawns. my knight can swiftly jump into the g5 square anytime in the near future. That's what I want in the game. So after b3, a knight comes in, we have just long castle for a long ride, so, the king is very safe in this plaster of Paris. And my construction builds a barrier to prevent the big river's stream. My knight wants to go to the g5 square, that's my strategy, and even my other knight can also come to f3 by maneuvering. That's how I plan to dominate the king side. Additionally, I can play g4 to open up the structure. Torch mocked me by playing king f7, essentially saying, hey, I am moving my king to the middle of the board, if you can touch my collar and break my hair, then do it. A couple of moves later, I had to break Torch's ego, but he committed another pawn to e6. All the pawns are on light squares, where my light square bishop will be activated by a pawn exchange or sacrifice on the g4 square. His light square bishop is not passive because his knight on c7 can move frequently on the board. Another option is to play c5 to open up the c-file for the queen and rook on c8, that's what he will want. So, let me share a beautiful health-related quote with you. Respect yourself enough to walk away from anything that no longer serves you, grows you, or makes you happy. We have a knight maneuver to g1, preparing for knight h3 if needed to consider g5. In our actual game, I played it differently, and a couple of moves later, we had rook g1, and the queen danced. Here, you can see that all my pieces are positioned to consider g4, as it's the only way to activate the position from a passive one. A couple of moves later, when bishop to h6 came on the board to attack the knight, the worst case scenario is that you cannot capture my knight. Even if you touch my knight with your dirty hands, I can capture it back with my bishop on f1, and as the rook moves, my rook will come to f1, preparing for the g4 move. No matter which piece you use to capture, I will capture it back with my knight, opening up the rook file. After the queen moves to g7, I will consider knight d3 to knight f4. As the rook moves, we have knight to f4, consequently, I will play g4. You may argue that instead of playing natural moves, black only moved the rook. Listen, black had no good moves to consider, his position is completely passive, and all the pieces are not in attacking mode, which is why you have to deal with this g4 pawn. If you capture it with your pawn, then I will push forward my pawn to h5 because why not? Everything is possible in chess. Capturing the pawn would result in knight takes h5, opening the rook file. The pawn on g5 will be protected by the bishop, and your position will be fragile. I won't go deeper into the position because it's very long, like traveling from California to New Zealand and back. Instead of capturing the pawn with the h-pawn, some may consider playing f takes e4, but it opens up my rook file. As the knight moves back, rook f8 might come to attack the rook, but it doesn't matter because my rook can come to f6. Regardless of your rook capture, I will just capture with my pawn, ending your queen and king's love story. As the knight moves back to attack the rook, it doesn't matter because I can double up my rooks on f1, and you cannot capture the rook with your knight. I am threatening to consider rook takes f8, do what's best for you, not what seems best. Even king d8 seems best, but I will just capture the rook, ending the game with a rook up. As the knight moves to c7 to protect the rooks, we will consider bishop d3 to attack the pawn on g6, and even playing bishop d8 seems like a good move to consider. It is a vulnerable move because I will capture your rook, your position is weak, and each of your pieces is 2. After the rook moves and the queen moves up to triple the battery, the rook moves again. The king cannot escape because of rook takes rook. The harsh reality, the knight will come to f4, the bishop moves back to protect it, but it doesn't matter because I will capture your rook. No matter if you capture the rook back or not, I will capture the g6 pawn with a check, discovering an attack on the queen. This position is just winning for me because I can do what I want to do. Nobody can stop me in the marathon of chess. Going back to all the variations, as Elon Musk noted, AI is far more intelligent than humans. I don't think so because no matter how AI progresses or how much data it gets, humans have something AI will never have: compassion, love, emotions, feelings, and all kinds of pure things that can only be produced by life, not by steel or iron entities. That's how God's creation is beautiful. Anyway, we discovered that the bishop cannot capture the knight. We have just queen to c8, and f takes e4 on the board. A very good move that I considered in the game. After the pawn capture, a question mark remains which piece should capture the pawn. Playing h5 is not possible. So, what should white do in this position? Here, if you dare to play n takes g4, then I should clap for you and congratulate you, because this move is very wrong. It is not the best move. You will lose the knight and lose the possibilities of controlling the squares. The best move in this position is bishop takes g4. It is not just the best move, it is a brilliant move. The point is that after you capture it, you open up the position and activate the knights in these outposts. Also, the other knight becomes very strong. Your king, located in the center of the board, is not in a safe square like a turtle, which carries its home wherever it goes. As the knight moves back in a few moves, black has a big question mark on his position regarding what to play. Think a little, what should white consider in this position? Every move is very passive and insignificant if you don't dare to find the best move. For example, if you consider knight e8, then I will push my pawn to f5, tempting you to capture it. After bishop takes g5 check, your king has only 2 squares to go. After king f8, I will push h5, threatening h6 to trap the dark square bishop. So after rook h7 and rook comes to g1, I propose sacrificing my knight on g4. That's what Torch will accept, because if I sacrifice one piece, you have to capture it. If you don't, it will create a harsh position for you like Mikhail Tal. After queen f4 check, the king has to hide on g8, as I consider h6, kicking the bishop back. Bishop e7 will come with the idea of playing queen f8, checkmating you on the spot. Even if you capture the bishop, it does not matter, because I can play rook takes g4 check, checking the black king. As the king moves up, I will consider queen f8 to checkmate you on g8. Also, I am threatening to capture your rook on e7. The position will be vulnerable for you. Nobody can protect you. So, let me share a successful quote with you. Your success is not defined by your circumstances. It is defined by your attitude, your persistence, and your determination. Keep going, you've got this. Going back to the position, we discovered that playing knight e8 or any natural-looking move is a waste. Even Magnus Carlsen would not survive against these moves. So after c5 is considered by Torch, prompting me to capture the pawn, he played knight e8 to attack the pawn on c5. Now, playing f5 will not create any significant advantage for you. Let me show you the variation. Black will capture the pawn with his e-pawn. After bishop takes g5 check, the king moves back to f8. Noticing that the black bishop and knight, along with other pieces, play a significant role in the black king side, playing h5, as suggested in the previous variation, might seem good, but black can capture the knight, or another possible move is queen takes c5. After h6 comes on the board, black will consider queen c3 check, exchanging queens before the big storm hits. This allows black to get the knight back, and the position will be okay for black. Going back to the position, we discovered that playing f5 is a bad choice, which is why we play queen d3, attacking the pawn. As the king moves back, we capture the pawn, and the king moves to c7. You can see how the king escapes from the city like Spider-Man. However, it does not matter, because I have h5 followed by h6. You can see how my past pawns reach their destiny. They want to become queens, with the speed of an ocean boat. As the bishop comes to c5, knight g5 follows, and the king moves back to b8. What an insane king run. The king, from g8, now landed on b8. After a couple of moves, we have exchanges and rook a7, knight f7 attacking the rook. Where should the rook go? It cannot go to g8 because of h7, and the rook will face harsh reality. The rook will be smashed. That is why we have queen c3 check, exchanging queens, and now you can see my queen is not on d3 to protect that diagonal. Hence, we have rook h7. As the knight moves back, we have rook g1, and the pawn is well protected. After a couple of moves, we have rook to g6 followed by knight g5. I want to push the pawn and aggressively push my pieces. Let's see how I accomplish it. A few moves later, we have knight e4, and after some more moves, he played knight g7 to block the rook file, but it does not matter because I have rook to f6. I will consider rook f7 to attack along the 7th rank. As the knight moves, we have a rook here, and a few moves later, you can see we have rook exchanges and bishop e7 followed by rook g7, in a few moves, f5 pawn exchanges, and I created my passed pawn. A few moves later, I have e7 and knight f7 on the board to attack the rook. Black is just dead lost. After a couple of moves, I am a rook up, and you can see that he tries to push his a pawn. I just pick up that pawn, and a few moves later, I give him a check and knight c8 on the board. No matter if you capture the knight or not, I will capture it on c7 and later promote to a new queen. This position is just winning for me because after a couple of checks, he captured the rook, but it does not matter because after the king moves, I promoted into 2 queens and finally checkmated him. So it was a very good and masterful chess game. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. If so, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wish you all the best. Bye bye, take care.